Today in All Things 80s, the most disappointing Star Wars book ever. Welcome back to All Things 80s. Now, as I've said in the last few videos, I find myself back in Scotland, back in my childhood home. And I've been going through all the various possessions and belongings, and I found this, which happens to be the most disappointing Star Wars book ever made. Now, this came about when I was in primary 4, which would have made me, let me think, 9 years old, and in 1982, I believe, prior to Return of the Jedi. And every once in a while in primary school, the teacher would have this catalogue that she would give to all of us to take home and decide what books we wished to purchase. Now, the minute I saw Star Wars, I was like, I gotta have this book. And of course, I ordered the book, and my mom gave me the money to take to the teacher to pay for the book. And as it happens, this was 75 pence. And it always took a couple of months for these books to arrive. But after those couple of months, the books did arrive, and it was a great moment of expectation where the teacher opened the box, checked the inventory, and gave us the books we'd purchased. So I was so excited to get hold of this because at that moment in time, I was, 9 or 10 years old. I think 9. Yeah, 9. Star Wars was the center of my universe. So I could not wait to get this book opened. I did open the book, and this was probably the first time in my life up until that point that I'd experienced genuine disappointment. This book was just awful. Now, I'm going to do a reading of the book. It's a very short book, but just be warned, there's no Darth Vader, there are no Stormtroopers, there are no blasters, there are no lightsabers, there's minimal use of the Force, and all in all, I was seriously let down. So anyway, I hope you can join me and share the disappointment as I go ahead and give you the reading of the book Star Wars, The Mystery of the Rebellious Robot. And bearing in mind, in the Star Wars universe, they weren't called robots, they were called droids. So here we go, Star Wars, The Mystery of the Rebellious Robot. In a distant galaxy, in another time, a pilot named Han Solo pointed his starship, the Millennium Falcon, towards the desert planet of Tatooine. Han and his co-pilot, a Wookiee named Chewbacca, were returning there with some much-needed supplies for their friend Luke Skywalker. Tatooine was suffering a severe drought, so Luke and a crew of scientists and engineers were building a super vaporator there. It would supply Tatooine, Luke's home planet, with the water it needed to survive. On board the Falcon, Chewbacca was playing planetary poker with a clever little robot named R2-D2. Suddenly, R2's computer monitor went dead. He stopped playing. Chewbacca didn't like being ignored, especially when he was winning a game. He let out a stream of angry noises to attract Han Solo's attention. "Forget that silly game, Chewie," said Han. "It's been a while since that robot was worked on. He could probably use some oil. But hurry. We're approaching Tatooine and I need your help to land this ship." Chewbacca looked around the ship, whining and growling all the while. Finally, he found a can of oil they had picked up the last time they were on Tatooine. He carefully shot a few drops of oil onto R2's joints. With a burst of blinking lights and a stream of bleeps and beeps, R2-D2's monitor came back on. He rocked back and forth, seemingly out of control. As Chewie jumped back to get out of the way, The berserk robot spun around and raced to the master computer controls of the Millennium Falcon. Before Chewie or Han could stop the little robot, he plugged into the controls and turned the starship upside down. Then the ship began turning wild somersaults. Stunned, Solo and Chewie held on to their seats. Han was an experienced pilot, but try as he might, he could not gain control of his ship. So he put in an urgent call for help to Luke Skywalker on Tatooine. Luke Skywalker watched his monitor closely as he tried to take ground-to-space control of the troubled ship. "I cannot understand it, sir," said C-3PO, the mild-mannered robot who had been R2's interpreter and companion for many years. "R2 has never acted like this before." "I don't understand it either, C-3PO, said Luke. "I checked R2 myself before the Falcon left, but I can't do anything from down here. I'll have to go up there and help them down." Luke ordered his own plane to be brought to the hangar and quickly got ready to make an emergency rescue in space. Luke was the son of a Jedi Knight, one of the good and just warriors of the old days. Like the Jedi Knights, Luke had been trained to use a special power called the Force. Though he did not yet know how to use its full power, he trusted his instincts and let the Force take over. With the help of the mysterious Force, Luke Skywalker reached the Millennium Falcon and guided it back to Tatooine. Back on the ground, Han Solo shook Luke's hand while Chewie stood by grinning. "We couldn't have done it without you, kid," said Han. "For a minute there, I thought we were all goners." "I was glad to help you," said Luke with a smile. "Besides, we need those supplies for the super vaporator. We have been having all kinds of problems here." Luke asked 3PO to take R2-D2 to maintenance to be checked out. "We're having a conference in just a few minutes, Han," said Luke. "I'd like you and Chewie to come along and give a report on the trouble you had with R2. Meanwhile, all the best scientists and technicians on Tatooine were talking in the conference room. Though they had checked all possible systems, not one of them could discover the cause of all the mechanical problems. In the past week, computers had been breaking down. Robots had gone haywire and rebelled. Machine parts had been stolen or fooled with. Worst of all, the crew working on the Vaporator project had found that several of the most important pieces had simply disappeared. Someone was obviously trying to wreck the project, but no one had been able to find out who. Everyone listened as Han Solo described what happened to R2-D2 aboard the Millennium Falcon. Finally, Captain Egoreg, leader of the Vaporator project, shook his head sadly. "We cannot find a cause for all these mechanical failures," he said. "I'm afraid that we will have to give up our plans to bring water and new life to Tatooine." "But we can't just give up," cried Princess Leia, a young member of the intergalactic government. "The people of Tatooine need our help to—" Suddenly, a flash of light and smoke. The conference room exploded. Luckily, no one was seriously injured, though they were all quite shaken up. Captain Egoreg immediately ordered everyone to stop work on the Vaporator project. "I'll be the first one out of here," cried Han Solo. "This place has gone crazy." 3PO seemed to be worse off than the others. He was rushed down to maintenance for repairs. R2-D2 was still there, shut down and waiting to be serviced. 3PO had decided to take a refreshing oil bath. He came out of the bath feeling even worse than he had right after the explosion. When he tried to speak to R2, no words came out. Another R2 unit, a maintenance robot, quickly plugged in his own computer into one of 3PO's checkpoint terminals. His lights started blinking on and off, and he bleeped, and he beeped excitedly. He had discovered 3PO's problems. The oil supply was badly contaminated. Then he checked R2 and found that his problem was oil contamination too. The maintenance robot quickly cleared the systems of R2 and 3PO. The three robots hurried to tell Captain Egoreg what they had found out, but as they passed through the next room, they surprised a small group of Jawas, the subhuman inhabitants of Tatooine. They were gibbering as they worked, and their eyes glowed red under their cloaks. The robots rushed forward, startling the Jawas, who ran in every direction. In the scuffle, 3PO and the maintenance robot were knocked to the floor. Luckily, R2 managed to hook up with an alarm and send out a call for help. Chewbacca, Luke, and Han Solo were the first to answer the call. They ran to maintenance and bumped into the wildly fleeing Jawas. "Catch them, Chewie," shouted Han. With an ear-splitting roar, Chewie leaped through the air, catching all of the frightened creatures in one swoop. Everyone knew that the Jawas made their living selling old machines and used robots as junk, but they'd become greedy for bigger profits. They started stealing mechanical parts and selling them to the innocent farmers of Tatooine. Finally, the Jawas found that good machines could be turned into junk more quickly if they fooled with the parts and contaminated the oil the machines ran on. And that is just what they had been up to. Now they would be punished, and the work on the Super Vaporator would continue as planned. Chewie gave a growl of pleasure when Princess Leia presented him with a reward for his bravery. Han Solo patted him proudly on the back. As for Luke, C-3PO and R2-D2, they were just happy that the mystery was solved and all the trouble was over. And that right there is the most disappointing Star Wars book ever. There are so many faults with this book that I don't have enough time to go into them. I guess first and foremost, robots is a term that was never used in Star Wars. It was always droids. The opening line, "In a distant galaxy, in another time." Sounds familiar, right? I suspect this was a knockoff. At no point in the credits does it mention Lucasfilm. It does say copyright 1979 by Black Falcon House. No mention of Lucasfilm Limited. And as I said in the introduction, the fact that there was no Darth Vader, no Stormtrooper, no blaster, no lightsaber made this the worst ever Star Wars book. With all that being said, going back to this book that I remember when I was 10 or 9 years old was a wonderful experience, and I wouldn't change that for the world. However, there are many Star Wars books out there that you should check out before ever checking this one out. I hope you enjoyed that. It was kind of fun. It was a real silly story, but it was all right for a kid of 9 years old. So anyway, please do like, please subscribe, and we'll see you in the next episode.